Hello, hello, and welcome back to Everyday Talks with Paula. And in this episode, we are looking at why are women criminalised for wanting to carry something that could deter a man from attacking her. So today, we're discussing why women are not allowed to carry something, or if they're allowed to carry something, is it useful? From stopping men from attacking, raping, assaulting, anything where men are coming into women's spaces where they're not allowed, if we haven't asked them to. So why are women being criminalized? Why are women being sent to jail? Why are women being given fines? Why are women being given cautions for daring to carry something that could save their life, which could save them from being raped, which could save them from being seriously assaulted? And why do we have to carry them? Why are we not discussing men shouldn't be raping, men shouldn't be attacking? Why are we not educating the boys into men? Why are we not focusing on that? Why are we putting all of the onus on women? So yeah, that's right, ladies. If we dare to fight back, if we harm the attacker, we could be prosecuted. We could be sent to jail. Everything is blamed on us for daring to fight back. Just let that sink in for a second. Daring to fight back. Your life could be prosecuted. Your life could be destroyed because you dared to fight back. And we're going to look into further on today about what is considered reasonable. The boys' club doesn't take into account the fact that if the man had not chosen to attack the woman, he'd still be alive. He'd still be perfectly okay. He'd be living his life. The reason I wanted to discuss this today was because I've been following the story of a lady who in 2018, she stabbed her rapist while he was attacking her and he died. She's now halfway through a 17-year sentence and has repeatedly lost her appeals. The most recent was in February 2026. The woman had already been raped when she was aged 14, and she had severe PTSD, and so she carried a knife with her for protection. I don't know, you can think about that of what you will, but she would never have needed that weapon if the man hadn't raped her when she was 14, and if the man hadn't tried to rape her when she was 18. So today I want you to meet my guest, Sarah, and we're going to take it from there. So hello, Sarah. Please introduce yourself and tell us why you're here today on Everyday Talks.
Yes, Paula, well, it's an honor to be here. I'm coming to you across the pond from Orlando, Florida. So I'm very happy that we were able to make this time work and that I could share this time with your audience. And I feel like, just like you alluded to in that introduction, this issue is so pervasive. It's not a your country or our country problem. This is women around the world. Everyone has experienced this in different ways. And there might be nuances to local laws and legislations and things like that, but what doesn't change is the pervasiveness of men being the prominent attackers. Now, that's not to say that I won't acknowledge that women have been the abuser in domestic violence situations before, or that women haven't ever committed atrocities. But it's kind of like looking at the landscape of, mass shootings in America. You can look at a demographic and say, well, this is mostly men. And on occasion, something might happen where there's an outlier. But when we look at the major trends, I feel like it warrants this discussion. So I'm happy to be here.
Absolutely beautiful. Thank you so much. So as you mentioned there, you come from America. Now, I've been doing a bit of research and for today's program. And in the USA, the laws are slightly different to the UK. So generally, it is legal for a woman to carry items for self-defense. Yeah, do you find that down in Florida, that it's in your state?
Especially in Florida. Yeah, the Florida even has an additional, I think they allow the conceal and carry. pretty openly. I feel like now there's been discussion about having open carry, which has been very heated. But then there's also a law that's a little bit more specific to our region that's called the Stand Your Ground law. Now, obviously, that got a lot of media notoriety during the time where I think it was the last name is Zimmerman or Zimmer, and he was the one who used it against the young black child, and it was very, he was claiming self-defense, and there was really no warrant for self-defense, but that stand your ground law is essentially giving you the right as a homeowner in Florida to say that if somebody comes up onto your property, the stand your ground law gives you the right to take any action, even taking their life, if they're coming onto your property. So that's a little bit different. That's not like being out in the wild or on the subway or something like that and having a device or an item with you. But it's definitely interesting to see how the state by state regional differences can influence what you're allowed to do and how you're allowed to protect yourself.
Yeah, yeah, because I was really looking at this. I mean, and they do fluctuate a lot between each state. You can have you can carry pepper spray, stun guns, or knives. Now that I was really surprised by that, depending on which state you're in. And it is obviously crucial to check local laws and stuff like that. So I sort of had this vision because we were just saying before about, I came to Savannah. I didn't realize that America was so big and you all have different timelines and it's all this, great. So I sort of, when I was reading all this, I had this vision of someone walking from one state to the next. Can I have the knife? No, I can't. Put it down. Can I have the gun? No, I can't. Put that. Oh, I can pick that up. No. And it's can it get really confusing as you're crossing state lines and yeah.
It does, and it feels that way. And I even chuckle a little bit because I don't have any necessarily protection devices myself that I carry with me, but I do, if it doesn't offend your listeners, I do have my medicinal marijuana card for my chronic pain, and I'm sober from alcohol, but I'm very open about the fact that I use medicinal marijuana in a health manner, and that can be some of the hairiest laws of crossing state lines of I'm allowed to have my products with me in Florida, but if I were to fly up and see my family in Minnesota, I have to make sure that it's not accidentally in my fanny pack or something. And technically, if somebody were to approach you as a federal agent, it's all federally illegal, even if I am in Florida, which is so bizarre to me that something can be legal from a state standpoint, but illegal from the federal standpoint. And it's just kind of who you're talking to or who catches you, essentially. But it makes it an equal gray area for conceal and carry. And there's a woman that I know where I was unaware that she concealed and carried until we were doing some volunteer work and we had to go into a bank together. And she goes, "Oh, I have to be sure to keep my purse in my car." And that's when I realized it's because she had a handgun with her. And I'm like, wow, I've been hanging out with you for a while and I didn't know you were locked and loaded here. But so it's really funny how much, whether or not people are making those independent choices, they're still not talking to one another about them, or just kind of openly sharing, "Hey, you want to see my stun gun?" Nobody's talking like that. I haven't heard it.
So when you say conceal and carry, you're talking about an actual proper gun with bullets that can kill.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
definitely.
You see that to me here in the UK, I mean that is just it brings up
You know
so
what's funnier
many
is
what
when
ifs,
I
what
lived in
ifs.
Colorado, it's so bizarre. And so when I lived in Colorado, I'll never forget this because it was just kind of like a funny juxtaposition of lives that would have never met, ended up meeting. And I truly can't pinpoint where I first met this woman, but we were exchanging services. So I was helping her build a website, and she was doing my eyelashes. So she would give me these eyelash extensions, and I'd lay there, and we'd be chatting. And the business that I was helping her build the website for was the fact that she designed and helped manufacture purses that were specifically designed for women to have easy access to their handgun, that it wasn't just like a normal bag where you put your gun in along with your chapstick and your wallet and your things like that, but it was like a separate panel that was off to the side. So you'd have your handbag, and it was almost like a separate pocket that you could get in really quickly and get your piece out. And I just thought it was so funny that I'm like, I've never been exposed to people like this who, walked around with guns, or, I had some gun training because I was a member of a police explorer program when I was young. So I had experience personally with firearms. I wasn't afraid of them. I just didn't own them. It wasn't part of my family life. And so for her, I mean, it was, she trained people on gun safety. She designed these purses. They had this like compound in some really remote part of Colorado that she would always talk about going to and doing these like gun trainings. And I'm like, wow, that's just so survivalist or something. It's so like you're going to go join the militia tomorrow to just like everybody has their own guns.
Wow. Okay.
um,
Yeah, I mean, I have had conversations with other women about, because we don't have guns here. The only people who
mhm.
can carry guns are police, certain police. Um, and so I don't see it very often, but when I do see a policeman walking around with a gun, and that's usually when I'm going to a city or something, it really is a shock factor. It's wow, because the only people around here who carry guns are farmers, but you don't see them, they're not pointing it at you. Um, so for me, guns are a terrifying prospect, but at the same time, if we could find some middle ground, some kind of gun that stuns, as it says here, you can have a stun gun. I don't really understand what the
Oh, that's a
stun would
taser.
be. A
Hmm.
taser gun, yeah. Okay,
Yeah, yeah.
okay. So something like that, or even I was discussing with a woman yesterday about, well, what about rubber bullets or something that is going to hurt but not
Or even a
kill?
paintball, right? Because then it
Yeah,
like
like a
marks them, and then
paintball.
they're running around, and you're like,
Absolutely.
that was the assailant. He's got the paint on him, you know?
Well, yeah, because what they've brought out recently is a sprays.
Mm.
I was looking at those. I'm just trying to find the what they were called. Um, I can't see them at the moment, but they're actual sprays that do uh, they leave a dye on whoever it sprays
Mm.
on, and it stays on for weeks. So it gives the police time to find the attacker or whatever.
Sure.
But even some people said, well, that's, they've got to go to work and they've got to live their life. And hang on a minute. Hang on a minute. Let's just go back a bit. Let's go back a bit. If he hadn't attacked the woman, he wouldn't be sprayed.
Right.
I've heard people talk about, well, pepper sprays. Oh, it's bad for the eyes. Again, if he hadn't attacked the woman, he wouldn't have sore eyes. So it's things like, I'm just reading here that you've got in your 50 states, you've got pepper spray. What's OC spray? Do you know what that is?
I haven't heard of that.
No.
Mm-mm.
Um, so you can get personal alarms, rape alarms, which obviously we can get here in the UK. We can buy those, which I have a real problem with. Why should we buy them? We should be given them, surely. But
Oh, OC is the same as pepper spray. It's the scientific name for it.
right, okay. Um,
Orla resin capsaicum.
right, okay. So rape alarms. So, but again, I have this thing about, well, unless I've got it round my neck and he could use that as a weapon, he could use that to strangle, he could, or you're trying to blow it, or hang on a minute, don't attack me yet, I've got my whistle to blow. So it's there's things like that. So you've got
Right.
stun guns, tasers, tactical
Well, and you
poo.
also you also think about the effectiveness of those, right? So
Yeah,
if
yeah,
you pepper spray someone, but they're already amped up, they are still in a rage, and so it doesn't necessarily immobilize them or deter them from what they're doing. It just kind of like kicks the bear, right? It just
yeah,
like riles them up even more. And then something like a whistle or a rape alarm, as well intentioned as those products may be, it's kind of like yelling help, right? If you yell help, do people actually run to you, or do they tell you yell mom or yell fire or something like that, and then people will actually run to you versus yelling help? So if somebody hears a whistle, are they
yeah,
running to you?
yeah.
Is it going to do anything?
Well, in this country, you hear a whistle, you just think a rave's going on. You don't necessarily think, oh, someone's being attacked. And I don't mean to
Exactly.
sound blasé about it, but a
Right.
whistle really, I don't know. I hear whistles all the time. It's usually kids playing or there's something
Well,
else
and
going on,
honestly,
you
the
know?
perfect example, we live by a trail. So right outside my window that I'm pointing to here is a beautiful trail. It's very serene. It's kind of remote, but not necessarily. There's a lot of communities that are nearby it, and there's a lot of passerby traffic.
Sure.
So while sitting at my desk all day, I'll hear any number of things. I'll hear e-bikes go by, I'll hear scooters go by, I'll hear families and strollers and all these things go by. And occasionally, I've heard screaming, like a kid screaming, like, ah!
Okay,
And
okay.
a little thing inside of my head goes, are they actually in trouble, or is this just a kid doing a tantrum, having a little meltdown? But there's always that little tinge in my head that says, I know I'm going to ignore this because it's just traffic on the trail. But what if one of those moments it was somebody being abducted, it was somebody actually in distress, and I'm just like, oh, that's another kid's meltdown. Kids just yell all the time, scream all the time. And I think that does talk a little bit about the desensitization that we get from media, from culture, from living in a busy city and hearing buses and whistles and alarms and ambulance sirens all the time. That are we actually programmed still to go and be curious and go, do you need help? Or do we just go, not my problem, not my thing,
Yeah.
I'm not going to get involved?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I've heard of the experiments that people have done to see how society would react to a child being abducted or a woman being abducted, and it was astounding how people just,
Right.
oh yeah, yeah, I'm on my phone, and absolutely, as you say, desensitized. No, I'm not getting involved, and there's always that fear of if I get involved, what if? There's always that, obviously. And it was interesting what you said there about. I was told at a very early age, if someone attacked you, if anything happens to you, don't cry help, cry fire,
Right.
because people will seem to care more about a building than coming to save a person. And I thought that was really fucked up,
Well, they're all
really messed.
rubberneckers these days. Why does traffic slow down when you're going past an accident? Not because they're going to help, not because they're calling 911, they're watching. They're
Yeah,
rubbernecking.
yeah.
So it's just a bunch of people who want to watch something burn. They're not trying to go stop the fire either. They're
No,
gawkers.
it's astounding. It is astounding. Um, so knives, I came across knives and keychains. I was really hoping one of a woman would come on today, um, and she actually makes legal weaponry for women. She's known as the Women's Safety Initiative. And I am hoping to get her on, at some point, and we can talk about what she offers women. And but she couldn't come on today because she was busy putting boxes together because women have become extra aware with, it seems like the last year or so, there seems to be a lot in the media. There seems to be a lot on social media as well, about women being attacked and the Epstein files and rape and stuff going on here in the UK, the grooming rape gangs of Birmingham and in Yorkshire and things like that. It's all being highlighted now. It's all coming out. So it's like everywhere a woman looks, women are being attacked. But we have to remember that this is the media. The media will sort of hype us up and do as much as they can.
Right.
Um, so we have to obviously be aware of that. So in the UK, it is generally illegal to carry any item in public specifically for the purpose of self-defense. We're not allowed to defend ourselves. Um, if it is designed or adapted to cause injury. Now that to me is really ambiguous, which I'm going to be
Well,
showing some bits and pieces later.
yeah.
Um, like it says we're allowed to have personal alarms, but we've already discussed what a whistle does. Deterrent sprays, as long as they're non-toxic, again, so this thing that's been coming out recently is this dye to spray. You've got to get the top off and you've got to be ready with it, and that kind of, again, it comes down to you're not allowed to have pepper spray. But you're allowed to have this, deep heat. I don't know about you, but I have a bad back, but it's trying to get hang on, trying to get the top off, you know? So I'm allowed to carry that around in my bag, apparently. Um, so yeah, criminal DNA marking sprays, they're, the ones that they spray the offender with a unique synthetic DNA trace.
Whatever that means.
Yeah, I think it's the ones I've heard about are that they it's a color, that they can't
Right.
wash off. Um, Under the Prevention of Crime Act 1953, an offensive weapon is defined as any article made or adapted for use for causing injury to the person, or intended by the person having it with him for such use. So the reason the woman is losing her appeal was because she was carrying that knife in case she was ever attacked. But at the same time, I can understand why she was carrying it. Years
Exactly.
ago when I was a young woman, I openly talk about the fact that I am a survivor of abuse of every kind. I'm a survivor of attempted murder and everything. So when I was a young woman in my late teens, I used to carry around a chisel because my dad was a builder.
Mm.
And my dad used to say, well, just tell them you were carrying it in your bag for me, and you'd forgot it was there. And I carried it for years. Thankfully, I never had to use it, but it was just part of my bag. I'd always check, yes, because I used to smoke. I'd have me smokes, and I'd have this, I'd have me makeup and me chisel. It was that was it. Didn't think anything
Yeah,
of it.
I have a friend who's the same way with her knife in her boot. She wears these big tall boots and she always keeps a knife in it. And it's a little bit of practicality and just resourcefulness. Like you never know if you're going to open a box or something, so it's not necessarily
Yeah.
always for self defense. But I keep laughing and chuckling when you're writing or when you're reading all of this legislation about that it's intent with the intention of it to be a weapon. Because are you familiar with the hat pin history, the history of women's hat pins? Because
Yes.
I feel like that's from the
Yes.
UK, and it was such a big trend, and obviously it bled over into US fashion and culture. But in the beginning, for people who are maybe watching and don't really know it, like in the beginning, hat pins were very small and dainty and they were cute.
Mhm.
But as women, what a shocker that history repeats itself. But women were attacked more and more, and women wanted to defend themselves and have a self-defense tactic. Their hat pins strategically kept getting larger and larger, to be almost like the size of a letter opener. That they were really unwieldy, and so now I think there's even regulation on how long a hat pin can be for that same reason. But that was a way that they were able to say, "Oh no, it's not self-defense. It's a decoration on my hat."
Yeah. Yeah. And talking about that,
Yeah,
this,
you've got your chopstick right there. Just stab him right in the eye.
yeah, it's not it's blunt, but with force, that could do damage. Of course it could,
Oh yeah.
you know. And that's why I wear it.
But it's
Not
just
really.
fashion. Yeah.
It's fashion, It
But
is when
isn't that funny that we can have knives and pepper spray and even guns in certain areas, but brass knuckles are illegal? Like America's just so weird. Like make it make sense.
it is. It's like someone sat around a table, and it'll be men sat around a table. They were probably drinking, smoking, and thinking, how can we make women's lives just that little bit more difficult? Because I'm reading here that if someone carries an everyday object like a tool or a heavy umbrella, which I find hilarious, I've got three outside, with the specific intent of using it as a weapon for self-defense, it can be classified as an offensive weapon. An umbrella. So
As an
here are,
offensive weapon that you're using for self-defense would be an
yeah,
offensive weapon.
yeah.
Hilarious.
So if I'm in the rain and some man decides to attack me and I used my brolly as a weapon, that could be classed as an offensive weapon if I take it too far. Here's some other things that can be classed as an offensive weapon.
No.
Yeah, it's quite heavy. I could hurt someone with it if I wanted to, across the face a couple of times.
Well, that's like the argument about like hijacking a plane. Like anything could be a
Yeah,
weapon, if you're using it with malice and intent and things like that. Like I have some high heeled shoes where the heel of that shoe could,
yeah,
make a pretty
yeah.
square dent.
I mean, yeah, I don't wear high heels, but I've got some really hefty boots, Doc Martens, who could really
Hmm.
do something. Like I said, if I was doing work in my house and I forgot this was in my bag, that's that would be classed as an offensive
Hmm.
weapon.
No.
Yeah, because it's got sharp edges. If I wanted to take that out my hair, hurt somebody. Tweezers.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I mean, eyebrows, we know it, ladies, but up the nose, but whatever. That could hurt.
Hmm.
You know?
That's my point, that anything could be like with
Absolutely
enough
anything.
power and,
Pen.
force.
Yeah.
Mm,
Bit
really?
of fire. And of course, knives. So, yes, knife, I kind of get that. But is that? If I'm attacked while I'm eating my tea, God help you. I like my food. And I don't mean to be, but we have to really look at the stupidity of some of these laws, some of these ideas made up by people who have obviously never been in that situation, you know? Because I can honestly say that if someone tried to attack me again, I would be grabbing anything. I would be doing anything
Right.
to
And
try
that's
and
where
stop
you have
it.
to fast forward and say, what do they actually think we're supposed to do? Like, let's play out one of their little scenarios of this is person A walking down the road, they're female, and then attacker comes up out of the bushes and approaches them. You like pause the video and go, what were they supposed to do? Oh, like, heavens me, just let it happen. Or you're like, what are we, if we can't call for anything, if no one's going to come, if we're going to take matters into our own hands, like, it goes back to your point of this discussion of what is actually expected of us. And I think where time and again the question gets answered by saying, you're just supposed to shut up,
Yeah,
right? You're just supposed to, like, you're not supposed to make a fuss. You're just supposed to go along with it, is basically the outcome that they're expecting of all of this. And it's just more of stifling voices and keeping women down, and you could even expand it out because it's not always women that are getting attacked. Marginalized communities are often attacked too. So it's kind of putting down weakness, and it's saying we want the weak to stay weak, and it's whoever they categorize as weak. I'm not calling women weak because I know how strong we are, but
absolutely.
it's that perception of the people who are quote unquote in charge and making these rules and saying we're going to keep them down as far down as they already are by things like this. And it's just because you're saying how ambiguous that is, the stuff that matters to them, not ambiguous. The stuff that they want to be able to manipulate and say, oh, no, that hairbrush was definitely a weapon, or she was definitely premeditated in, him assaulting her and she had the knife. Well, again, it's kind of that am I allowed to swear? The F around and find out concept of
Yeah.
that's just you play stupid games, you win stupid prizes. And that's just, to me, I feel very bad for that woman going through all of that legal stress and turmoil after what she's already been through.
Absolutely. Because in that split second, you have to make decisions. You have to, you know, uh, I wish I could find a quote. I read it a few weeks ago and it sickened me to the bone. And it was something like 99.9% of women don't die from rape. So why do they fight back?
Oh,
And and I wish I could
oh.
find it again. I'm kicking myself. I've tried all day to try and find it again, and I can't. And it's like, what, we're supposed to lie down and enjoy it? Now, some other guy did actually say that. Just, you can't stop it, so just lie back and enjoy it.
Oh,
And
I'm sure he'd be saying that if he was getting,
well, yeah,
you know.
exactly. But if there's if you look at a lot of famous men, quite a few of them have said along the same lines. Well, women are inferior. They have their uses. Men are men. Boys are boys. You
Mhm.
know, I'm not here for your pleasure. I'm not here for men's pleasure. I am here for me, you know? And boys need to be taught that. Boys need to be taught that no means no, and no is a full sentence. I don't need to explain myself. And we have to start young, obviously, because by the time that they're getting to teens now, I don't know
Oh,
whether
yeah.
you've heard about it, but boys in their teens are now attacking girls in school, you
Yeah,
know?
and there was a recent, I can't remember if it was Florida or where this situation happened or even the ages that were exact because I try not to absorb a ton of negative media, especially being a survivor. I don't want to sit here and, headline after headline. It
Of
can get
course.
exhausting.
Yeah.
But the Reader's Digest version of the story was that a young man, I think he was maybe 21 or 22 or something like that, I think he attacked and sexually assaulted a woman in her 50s or 60s because that was like he wanted to lose his virginity and that's how he wanted to do it. And I feel like that power play of weaponizing rape is all about dominance. It's all about control. And in Netflix and all these things, there's all these serial killer and creepy rapey documentaries, which I don't know why that I enjoy watching, because maybe it's like trying to understand or hear the victim stories as well. But when you watch a lot of that type of media, the perpetrator, the person, is always trying to control. Serial killers, rapists, people who have that fantasy or fascination with immobilizing and taking dignity and doing all of this stuff. So when you're saying we have to start young, it is so imperative. And it's not just don't do this and it's bad and it's finger wagging, but actually saying, how much hurt do you cause a person when you do something like this, and how dehumanizing or demoralizing and all that stuff, and actually show emotion behind it. Because I feel like, whether it's the prevalence of pornography or the prevalence of just, sometimes aggressive media that can bear on the, fringe of just dangerous, violent media or sexual media, it glorifies that. It shows like that is like, if you're a man, if you're a masculine person, you can take that piece of ass and you can do that and you can just, it's almost cherished or like celebrated. Bonkers.
And I think there's also what I've been doing research for this as well as other things is that I've come across a lot of lack of education. Boys do not know how a woman's body works. And I've been watching things like men believing that women can just stop periods whenever they want to.
If only.
Yeah, but they choose to have them every month to ruin my life so I can't have sex. I've actually heard men saying that. There was one that sort of got me about this particular subject was a lot of men actually believe that once there's penetration, it becomes pleasurable for women.
Huh.
Yeah. I'd love to know who taught them that. I mean, so that for me tells me that there is a real lack of education in schools, in parenting, in society as a whole. If boys actually believe that. And something that's been going on here in the UK that's caused an absolute outrage, that's been going on for months now, is that boys as young as 13 and 14 are being taught how to strangle their girlfriends.
I've heard a lot about this
And
with the ban.
yeah, absolutely. But it shouldn't even have been a topic that came up. So where has this sexualization of boys come from, where they think they can minimalize and subjugate girls? That is your starting point for a rapist as a man.
Right.
If a boy can't take the word no as a whole sentence, then somewhere along the line he's going to think, oh, no me. How many times have I heard, oh, when they say no, they really mean yes?
Ugh, yeah.
How many times? I mean, I don't. I'm 55. I've been seeing this for countless years, and I've had so many conversations with men and boys thinking, really? So you honestly think when I say no, I'm actually saying, yeah, I'm just playing hard to get? Oh, yeah, because that's what girls do. Really? The conversations, the thought pattern that's going on in a
Well, when
boy's
they see
mind.
that in media, when they see that is this kind of sultry cat and mouse game back and forth in a
Oh, yeah.
movie or in pornography, of
Yeah.
course they're going to think that that's reality. Of course they're going to model it off of. And not to get too graphic or crass, but when you gave that example that they believe that after penetration it becomes pleasurable, I've also heard the equally offensive logic of, if the woman gets wet, then she came. And that's, but that's also a byproduct of just the situation that's happening. And I've heard that as used as an excuse of why it wasn't rape, because, she came. And it's like, that's not what that is, and that's not what that was, and you're a whole piece of trash of a person,
Yeah,
if you
yeah.
believe that.
Absolutely. I can believe it. I can. I've heard so many variations of shit from men. It really does, I think, come down to they have no idea how a woman's body works, you know?
Right.
And I think you touched on a point there about pornography. Now, pornography, I have watched that change over the years to something I can't even contemplate now. So when I was a young girl, many, many years ago, pornography, you couldn't get hold of it. You couldn't see it. You know, the best you had for boys, I suppose, in the 70s and 80s growing up was page three of The Sun. I don't know if you know that newspaper, but it was a page three and it would be a topless model. I don't know why.
Just in the newspaper? Just
Yeah,
the
in
normal
the newspaper.
newspaper?
Yeah, a normal newspaper. It became a thing. Page three, it would be some skinny woman with big boobs, and that would be it. And boys would get excited about that because that was the extent of pornography in the 70s and 80s. And the other way that boys could get hold of pornography was, and this is a really vile thing, I don't know why it happened, but you could be walking along and see a porn magazine stuffed into a hedge. And the boys and it became a thing for truck drivers. They knew where they all were and they'd read them, then stick them back in the hedge for the next truck driver. And the boys got to know where the truck drivers were and they'd go and find all the porn mags and stuff.
Oh, wow.
Because obviously under 18s you couldn't get them from the top shelf. So 70s and 80s growing up and obviously before then, you didn't have porn. Then suddenly social media comes along. You know, videos came along. You know, your VHSs and stuff like that. But again, you still couldn't get hold of them if you were under 18. Now, it's like you can just tap in porn. Poof, there you go, 24/7. You can't switch it off. It's just and it's done something, I think, to the male population. It's done
Well,
something
did you
to
hear
boys.
what's been going on with X and Elon Musk and the AI situation going on? So this is a big debate right now. I was listening to it on NPR the other morning. But again, kind of high level overview for your listeners. Essentially, when Elon Musk purchased Twitter and called it X, they developed an AI to live within the X system, and I think they call it Gronk. So Gronk is their AI, the way that everybody has a name for their robots. So Gronk on X has a feature that you can upload photos or you can ask it to do generative image generation and create pornographic images. So you could take a family member, you could take somebody at work or a coworker, you could put their photo in and get naked photos of them made using their image and likeness. And so obviously this was a slippery slope that it was starting to make child pornography images, and it was obviously fueling things like revenge porn, and obviously if anybody of the prompts is underage, you know, it's just horrible. And so there was this outcry of our communities to say this shouldn't exist, this shouldn't be a feature. And so instead of backpedaling it and saying, yes, let's put guardrails in so these types of prompts can't be created, they made it a premium feature. They made it so that you have to pay for it. So it'll still do it, but only if you're a paid member of Gronk. And they're like, this sends the complete wrong message, is showing that not only is it encouraged, it's almost sought after to be behind a paywall, to be lucrative and exciting enough to be worth paying for. And it just totally was, in my opinion, such a tone deaf and horrible approach to that happening on your platform. So very
Goodness me.
unfortunate to see that
That's
path.
I will certainly research that, and perhaps
Yeah.
that would be something else to sort of be talking about. Um, but yeah, so coming back to, you know, what women have to deal with, and sort of, as we say, criminalizing women for daring to fight back from as and I think we're making good points in that, you know, the way that women are portrayed now, the way that women are seen by men and boys, I think is it's very unhealthy, you know. So I think it's very unhealthy, and I think the word self-defense, I think that is very ambiguous, you know. I think in all countries. At the moment, self-defense is legal in the UK, provided the force used is reasonable.
But they're trying to kill me, so is it not reasonable for me to kill them first?
Exactly. I mean, so who came up with this word reasonable? To protect yourself or others or property from immediate danger. You are allowed to act in the heat of the moment using the force you honestly feel is necessary, but it
This
must
is
be.
so British. This is
It
so
really
like
is.
posh.
I feel like I should be having a cup of tea here, something. Using the force you honestly feel is necessary, but it must be proportional to the threat. That, I mean, that's what? So, okay, so I came up with, I asked my husband whether he thought these were good ideas. So I could kick you in the balls a couple of times, and that would drop you like a stone. But if I gave you one more kick to be sure that you couldn't get up, that would probably be considered unreasonable. But the first one or two probably would be reasonable.
Don't get excessive, Paula. Don't get
Okay,
kick
no,
happy. Don't go off the
yeah,
handle.
I know. I'll just go and have my cup of tea. So what else did it? So several kicks in the groin. Okay. What if I stabbed him in the eye with a hairpin? We talked about hairpins. Uh, like this. If I took this out my hair, stabbed him, is once reasonable? Or, like we said at the beginning, you're stabbing, you're kicking the bear. If he's a big guy and once is not enough, how many times is considered reasonable
Right,
for
and
me to
how
stab?
I almost picture it fast forwarded in a situation like that. Like I fast forward to a court scene, right? And you're trying to plead your case. I'm sure it's different in the UK, but you've got the judge and the jury, and you're trying to make your case. And the more cringy and the more uncomfortable, and the more that the men on the jury are crossing their legs and feeling for the person who got attacked, the minute that you put that in their eye and you make them a skewer, you're at fault.
Yeah,
Not even for the proportion, just because that sounded like too much.
yeah,
But what is too much, and why was it too much? And once again, why was I in this situation?
exactly, exactly. So what one man considers reasonable is another man's overreaction. And that is what's being used against women. Nobody has really defined what is reasonable. They seem to make it up with every case, you know?
And the other thing that tends to go hand in hand with women, right? They love the word hysteria. And the minute that you go into hysterics, then it's easy to say, well, she wasn't thinking clearly, and she couldn't have been reasonable because she had this mental state. And I feel like that's the other thing that they want to paint women as when we're the victims, or when we're whatever, these things are happening to us, is, were you able to keep it together, or did you get hysterical? Did you get all emotional about it? It's like someone's trying to rape me, or someone's trying to pull me into a van. You don't think I'm going to flail with everything I've got? Like, there's no room for keeping it level-headed and, oh, pardon me, let me just get something out of my shoe. Like, I'm not gonna go calm into the night. Like, I'm gonna go out arms ablaze.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I'm kicking and screaming.
Yes.
I could honestly, I think I'd be taking them down with me. Because I don't want to go back there. I've done that. I've been in that hell. I don't want to do it again. And women who have never been attacked, who have never been in that situation of trauma, when I talk to them about this, they think nothing of walking down lanes or dark alleys, or going anywhere on their own, or doing, because it's not part of their psyche, and in a way I'm jealous of that. That naivety. I think it's but men are making the laws to protect other men, and I just feel that they're kind of stuck in the middle, and we can't win. That we lose if we don't, and we lose if we do.
Right.
It really does feel like we're that at the moment, and women being raped is still not considered by both the justice system or society to be that big a deal. I don't.
And even now it feels like the response is, well, hasn't everybody? And I feel like in a way the Me Too movement was powerful and, earth-shattering in terms of making progress, the way that women becoming executives in the 80s was breaking the glass ceiling, and it was remarkable for its time. But now after Me Too had its big flash in the pan moment, and now everybody, it's almost the punchline, the worn out, Me Too, Me Too, Me Too. It almost becomes desensitized again to say, oh, well, everybody has. Hasn't everybody been raped? Hasn't anybody had sexual assault? Hasn't everybody had this experience? And thankfully, no. Thankfully, there are still some people who haven't, but that's not something that I'm happy about, getting to the other side of that metric, that so many people have done it or had it happen to them that they're just, numb to it. And they're just like, oh, yeah, well, what are we going to do? And that nihilism and that feeling of giving up is, being worn down by legislation like you're reading. Oh, don't have your hairbrush, or don't have your brolly, or don't have, this and that. It's like, I guess I'm just going to go walk around and say, if you want it, I guess just go right ahead, because that's
Yeah.
what they want me to do.
Well, yeah, I was sort of in a debate with a woman a couple of weeks ago. There was something on I think it was TikTok, and it was uh, a delivery driver coming to the door, and a couple of women flashed him, and those women were being attacked left, right, and centre, men and women, saying that that was a really stupid thing to do. There's women being raped and attacked all over the world, and you're sort of, you're encouraging this guy and stuff. And I said, hang on a minute. These women can do what they want with their bodies. It doesn't give him the right to touch them. A woman should be allowed to walk around naked if she wants to. It still doesn't give a man a right to touch her.
Right.
He can look fine. She's naked. I look at, men walking around topless. That's fine. But I wouldn't go up to him and go, whoa. You know,
Right.
I wouldn't do that because I respect him. But a woman should be able to do whatever she wants. It's her body. But they were completely missing the point. They were wholly focused on the fact that they'd flashed him. They dared to expose their body. Well, hang on a minute. A woman is allowed to expose her body if she wants to. Not particularly, whatever. Do what she wants with it. But you allow breasts to be exposed. I was just talking about page 3. You allow women to be exposed on porn. You allow women to be exposed all the time. But as long as it doesn't, it fits your agenda,
Right.
a woman's body is hers. She can do what the bloody hell she wants with
Well,
it.
and I think there's even, I'm trying to think of where the trend happens. I don't know if it's at like concerts or where I've seen this happen, but it's women getting in further and further kind of skimpy outfits and levels of undress, and then saying, still not asking for it. And I feel like that is just such a powerful phrase to say, I could be taking those boudoir shoots, I could be in the lingerie, I could be, posing nude in an artistic way or whatever, and still not asking for it. Because, like you're saying, nudity is not an invitation. The invitation is the invitation. And that's the conversation around consent that I feel like we're just so lacking with education, because maybe too many people think things are lost in subtext and context and tongue in cheek. Well, they're flirting, they really mean yes, and those types of things. But if we actually talk to each other, if we actually got to know one another, if you knew the person you were courting and attracted to, and you could actually know when they are being flirtatious and when they do mean yes, like, is it a clue? Is it a facial expression? Is it a something, Because then you actually do know. But for you to just assume, I feel like it's that entitlement that gets women mad, right? It's the entitlement that says, you can rape all you want to, and if you get injured in the crossfire, then you're the victim. And now suddenly you get legal recourse and protection from the woman who hurt you, the woman that you were trying to hurt and rape and take dignity from and have power over and have control over. So the whole punishment matching the crime thing is way off, and the education is definitely needs improvement across the board.
Absolutely. 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 So, I mean, here in the UK, as I said, women, it's not considered a big deal. Rapists are allowed to walk free in this country. Um, I mean, it's been consistently for the last couple of years. Women are just staring at gobsmacked at this, pornography man with child pornography. Yeah, let him walk free. A man who rapes a 12-year-old. Yeah, let him walk free. No. Oh, but if you do a nasty tweet, oh, come on now. 2 years,
You're
at
gonna
least.
ruin his reputation.
Oh, yeah, 2 years, because apparently tweeting about a murderer or a child rapist is a really bad thing to do. Don't do that, ladies. You know, it really does. It's again, it's as we've already said, it's putting women back in your place. Know your place, ladies. And apparently, to men, it's on your back. You know, um, lie back and let him do it. Apparently. So I'm going to finish on this because I came across this a few years ago, and if I can ever get hold of this woman, I really, really want to try and get hold of her. So, have you ever heard of this invention called rapax? It's absolutely,
Is that the reverse thing that like spines in his
yeah,
thing?
yeah.
Oh, those are
So,
terrifying. That is a slippery slope if you go
there
Googling
is.
that.
Oh, I've been talking to women about this over the last few months, and they're like, "Oh, is there anything that would just cut it off? That would be amazing." Any of you who don't know, this is an invention that was created by South African doctor Sonette Ehlers. I'm sorry if I'm saying her name wrong. Is a notable anti-rape device designed to prevent sexual assault. Although technically it doesn't stop the assault.
The
He just
assault has to happen
It
to have
has
it
to
work,
happen
but
for
it'll
it to
never
work.
happen again.
Well, yeah. It's inspired by a rape victim who said that she wishes she had teeth down there. It is a female condom-like device, and it's worth looking it up on the internet because it really is, woo, scary.
Jarring.
Um, it has hooks that latch onto the perpetrator's penis during penetration, and it requires medical removal. He cannot take it off himself. He will harm his appendage. Um, and it helps identify the attacker because he's walking around with this thing on the end of his penis. It requires a doctor to remove it. So on that note, I mean, should all women carry one of those around? There was talk around, do women have to go back to chastity belts where you can't.
Well, the device that you were just describing with the hooks, that would probably be described as carrying it with the intent to cause harm. So you probably
Yeah,
couldn't go back to something like that because
yeah.
the only reason why you'd have that is the same reason why that girl was carrying the knife when she was attacked. So I feel like by the logic of the UK laws you read, they wouldn't let you have that device.
Yeah, they would probably, yeah, they would. I agree with you. I think they would consider that unreasonable and premeditated.
What a
I think they
slut!
would.
What a slut you
Oh,
are!
yes, yes. You were expecting it, you know? So you went out of your way to get this
To
man,
entrap him,
entrap him. Absolutely, that's the word.
that's
And
what
they
they would
they
do.
would use that.
That's there. We just wrote it for them.
Honestly, they
Yeah.
would. It's it's a it's a minefield, of course it is, and we can only touch on it a little bit today. Um, but there's lots and lots of things that we've touched on today, like pornography, that I really want to talk about in future episodes and things like that. So, Sarah, I really want to thank you so much for joining me today. And if you ever want to come back and discuss other subjects further, you would be
Something a little
absolutely.
lighter, yeah.
Oh, we'll find something. But the idea of these programs is to talk about things that, yeah, they're a little bit uncomfortable, but they need to be spoken about because sadly, everyday women are dealing with these issues every day, and that was the point of why I started these. So I'd like to thank you, Sarah, and I look forward to seeing you all again next month, where we are going to be discussing the menopause and how society treats women who are dealing with it. Yeah, it's not always straightforward, is it? So thank you very much, and I'll see you next time. Bye
Absolutely.
bye.
Thanks, Paula.
Bye bye.